is to share who's worried about the fire hazard of this facility.
Sorry.
So am I. I'm a fire nerd. So my background,
Excuse me, could you state your name for the record?
Yes, Todd LaBerge. I already did.
You did? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My
I
apologies.
didn't hear it, I'm sorry. I did not hear it.
In point of order, you'll have to address your comments to the chair.
Yes, sir. So my background, fire safety, for a decade, I was a fire marshal with the Berkeley National Laboratory. You have a sister lab here, obviously. And before that, I ran the Global Fire Protection Program for Intel Corporation. In a facility local here. I worked for the Department of Defense for a while. So my background is both in engineering and fire and life safety. So I'm here to speak to you from a factual standpoint of what batteries are, what risks they pose, how those risks are mitigated, and then I'll land my plane on how this project is proposing to meet those risks and those concerns for the commission. Just 3 slides. So I wanted to start with this slide, if you all can see it up here. This is the proposed unit, what we call the BESS, the Battery Energy Storage System. This is the Tesla Megapack 2 XL. So it's their big unit. You can see it on the top left frame. But let me back up. Who here has an electric vehicle? Who has an EV?
Point of order, sir, you'll have to address your comments to the chair.
Sorry. May I swivel? Do you have an EV, sir?
No.
Okay. I would assume some of the residents have an EV.
I saw a few games.
In the EVs, this is a very similar battery to what's in your electric vehicle. They come by size, and this is what we call a 26650. The one in your EV, should you have one, is an 18650 solid, smaller, a little bit narrower. And a standard Tesla Model Y, you have a little over 7,000 of these. All right? Wow, I know, right? Your EV is a mobile energy storage system. Think about it that way. I can drive it around. I have 20 to 70 kilowatt hours. So the ones in the Tesla, this Megapack 2 XL, if you see on the bottom of the slide on the left, you see that sort of navy cobalt blue box? That's sort of a battery. They're called a prismatic cell. It's about the size of, I bought this in the airport, it's about the size of this novel. It's a little bit narrower. They're about 6 inches by 6 inches by 2 inches. You go in a tray, the tray goes in that little 3-stack we call a module, and then you have 24 modules in the Megapack 2 XL. There will be 110 of these. You can see them in the bottom right-hand corner. So we have thousands of something this big in a box. It's about 29 feet long. We have 110 of those boxes. So this is what you'll be looking at. This is what they look like. This little blue cylinder is what's in your EV. And if you have, for anyone, do you have solar or residential EV? Do you have a battery at your house?
No.
For anyone who may, you have these in your battery at your house, roughly the same size. All right. Little battery background for everyone. So if we move forward, if I may move to the second slide, go back one. We've all heard about battery fires. There's outstanding research over here. Thank you for providing this, by the way. These are great research. This is what I live in.
Hundreds of hours.
Hundreds of hours, thank you. I've spent thousands of hours in this field. So I sit on some of the committees that write the codes on this. We write the fire safety code. I sit with the NFPA 55 task groups. I sit with the International Fire Code, writing the codes that the County Fire Marshal Chief will be enforcing in Section 1207 of the Fire Code. So this is my passion. This is not my work. So here we can see, this is a great graph, but a lot of us who are fire nerds and play in the battery space, this is your global failure rate produced by EPRI. It's out there, you can all find it on the web, and you'll see, for those of you who can't see in the back, I can barely see it from here. There's a 97% reduction in fires with batteries. Yes, they catch on fire. There's a great bit of evidence right here that they do. Here are a few things about this. So the technology has evolved. If you see how the failure rate has plummeted, that's because battery chemistry and battery technology has gotten significantly better. Some of these items, the fires over here are outstanding. Those are solar fires and inverter fires, and especially the one in California that lit 1,000 acres on fire. It didn't actually get to the solar panels or the battery. It stayed in the transmission wires. It didn't actually even affect the solar panels. So when we start looking at the failure rates, these are getting a lot better, but they're not without risk. There's a non-zero. So what Tesla does, can you go back to the Megapack? is if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you see all the vents, the black lines on the top. What Tesla did is rather than do fire safety by theory, they said, why don't we take these things out to our property? Tesla did it outside of Sparks and that. They lit several of these on fire. And it actually took a significant amount of effort to get them out of fire. But they wanted to force it to see what happens, because that way I can determine how to protect from fire. Because they do the batteries, when they go to this thing called thermal runaway, you can't stop it. They eject flammable and toxic gases. And I'll get to that. I know that's a big concern. And so they wanted to test it, take readings, and have true science and engineering data behind what's going to happen. Because make no mistake, these things are deployed globally. So what Tesla learned is with their design, they have a way to mitigate when these batteries do this thing called thermal runaway and they start ejecting gases. What are we going to do? We put flammable gases in a box, I have an explosion here. So they, rather than worrying about suppression agents that have these forever chemicals, you've all heard of those PFOAs, I'm sure, I know you have experience with that in your groundwater here. Firefighting foam, bad. So Tesla didn't want to do that. Some manufacturers do. The manufacturer who's trying to get one of these in Santa Fe County, they're using this type of agent, which is appropriately there's a lot of it. They don't have this here. This is completely passive. Should all of the failure prevention mechanisms in this fail, Tesla has decided we're going to actively have a little automotive spark plug to light the gases on fire, to make sure that this thing converts into a fire rather than gases it could detonate. Okay. And then all the flames and smoke come out of the top vents. So by directing everything upwards rather than outwards, I make sure I'm reducing heat flux and radiation and catching other things on fire. Because of the live fire testing that they particularly did, some of these other units on this board are not subject to the same testing. It's different manufacturers. This very specific manufacturer has taken the additional steps to make sure, how do we prevent wildland fire? How do we prevent any fire from spreading the building? And through the testing, they determined they need to have them certain feet apart, 3.5 feet apart back to back, 10 feet between groups. Great. But now here comes the biggest concern. So if I have a failure in each one of these cells, and there are several thousand of these on your site, I think the number is 834,000. The failure rate, remember you have 7,000 in your Tesla that you're parking in your garage, in your wood house. Right, so if we want to talk about failure rates and concerns, let's talk about parking your EV in your garage. Or your power drill. You know, power drill, I don't even charge my power drill in my house anymore. I charge myself. So if we can go to the wildland fire slide. So one of the things I'm worried about it. I live in California. My state loves to light on fire all the time. So I'm worried about wildland fire as much as y'all are. I live adjacent to a very high fire hazard severity zone, that's what we call it. I'm worried about ember cast, I'm worried about flames jumping. So if you think about it, this is a giant metal box. In a house in a wildland fire, if I may turn, is anyone, are you volunteer firefighter in the commission? Anyone have firefighting experience? Yes. Thank you for your service. One of the things you're worried about in a wildland fire is what we call ember cast, right? I can throw embers from burning wood, trees, shrubs, grass. Grass fires, man, they get rid. The wind out here today, good wind and fire. I have a metal box. The metal box is not going to throw embers, it's not going to throw sparks, it will throw flames straight up. Okay, can you move to the wildland fire? So this is my concern. Wildland fire is one of the things I do a lot of. And so I'm worried about how do I keep this from spreading to the land? Can you go one before? There you go. How do I keep my flames from going down to the ground and involving the areas? I live in an area, I'm worried about it. I have solar in my house. I'm worried about my neighbor's firewood stacked next to my roof. In this particular case, in the code committee, we wrote, you need 10 feet of clearance to any combustibles. Tesla's fire testing crews, you only need about 4.5 feet. They can go 3 feet back to back and not spread fire. The PCR project, as I understand from the project documents, they're spending 100 feet of ground between the edge of the unit and any wildland that may be around. The solar panels are Class A panels. The legacy panels, which you can see great evidence of how they burn, those legacy panels are Class B, they're not fire resistant. And the way you bring your cabling underground prevents the cabling from lighting on fire. That has happened as well. And so that's how you prevent those things, and the solar panels from lighting on fire causing a problem. From the Megapack 2, when they start to eject smoke, and they burn, we've all seen the photos and the videos from News Channel 7. The EPA has done a lot of monitoring on this. And even this one in Charlotte, New York, in the upper left, They did soil, water, and air testing, and EPA, and said, nope, there is no detectable traces of anything from this fire in the upper left-hand panel. We all see the ones, you happen to see the one that happened in June in San Diego, in Otay Mesa. They had a whole building full of batteries burned. It burned for 2.5 weeks. It was a 50,000 square foot building. I may be inaccurate on the square footage, but it was long. These are 110 small Connex boxes, for lack of a better way, 29 feet on the 53 footages. So if they burn for an hour or two. And so my concern is, what is my smoke plume? Do I have these toxic chemicals, the hydrogen sulfide, the hydrofluoric acid, the carbon monoxide, and all these things? I'm worried about it as a resident. I know you, the commission is, I know our residents are. So the EPA is then monitoring a lot of these fires. And to date, there has been no detectable level of flammable gases, toxic gases, or other harmful constituents in the smoke from these fires. And I'm an engineer, I'm a science guy, so I will trust the data. Yes, it's smoke, I get that. And I know a lot of us are worried about having a shelter in place. I had to worry about it when I had a facility burned down my house. And this is the immediate response of fire departments, especially the fire departments who are not familiar with the hazard. That's why the team is working with the local fire department here in Sandoval County. I'm also working with Santa Fe County to provide education and training on, if you have a fire, here's what you do, right? Hey, you just stand off and let it burn, we're all familiar with it. I don't want to put water on it, because you're not going to put it out. You just can't, it's impossible. And I don't want to get water in the groundwater. Water is a scarce resource both here in New Mexico and in my home state of California. So these are designed to simply burn straight up. And if you see the location here, this is a map showing the wildland fire hazard. You see the green, right? So very low. So you're in a very low wildland fire hazard severity zone. And then I have 100 foot of clear, and I do not have a potential to throw embers past that. Right? So you do regular grounds maintenance. That's what we do in the fire world anyway. We do regular ground maintenance. So from a factual standpoint, I can address the risk of this thermal runaway. I can address, Tesla has addressed the risk of fire. They've addressed the risk of fire spread on the piece of equipment. PCR and the developer here is addressing the risk of, well, just in case something gets really crazy, lightning strike or something, we're going to put 100 feet of gravel, right? No ignition zone, and I know there's a lot of firewise communities around here. We're familiar with this 100 foot, 30 foot, 5 foot, no ignition zone. That's what the project is doing from a factual engineering standpoint. And these are the methods that they're going to take. But one of the things a lot of us worry about is toxic gases. You always see in the articles, oh, toxic plumes. What's the toxic gas we all have in our house?
Methane.
Yes, natural gas, carbon monoxide. Right? Do you have a natural gas fire in your house? A natural gas stove or burner or heater? You're putting out about 15 parts per million of carbon monoxide in every burner. We have a 4 or 6 burner stove, right? Your carbon monoxide detector in your house detects at 400 parts per million. So you could have, whatever happens on that, 30 burners going before you have a problem, right? Okay.
Nitrous oxide.
And a property line from every fire that the EPA has done with testing it. Yes, there's smoke. Let's make a mistake. There is smoke. There's no detectable limits of carbon monoxide, sometimes carbon dioxide. So breathing it. I don't have hydrofluoric acid. I don't have hydrogen cyanide. I don't have any of the other gases. They've all been consumed and they dilute just like any wildfire. I think I'm running over time. I'm going to land my plane. The wildland fire risk is mitigated by how the project is installing the Tesla Neck Pack 2 XLs. And from an engineering standpoint, they're mitigating the challenge of the fire going to ground. And they're using a system that is different from the ones you see in these other boards. This particular system has intentionally been ignited to determine its potential for fire spread rather than theory. They know how it burns and they know how to set it. I apologize for running long.